Did you know that Apple computers have existed for over 50 years now? That's right. It's been a long journey, and not all of them are that pretty shiny one you probably have. In fact, a lot of them look more like this. And yes, it still works. But unfortunately, I can only mean that in a literal sense. Look, I know you're down on your feet right now, but you're like 40 years old, man. I'm gonna need you to start paying rent. Sup, Rotten? Welcome to the definitive, completely unbiased, and totally scientifically proven ranking of the top 10 Macs of all time. For over 4 decades, Apple has been making personal computers. Some of them changed the course of human history, and then there were others that were shaped like trash cans. But today, we are celebrating the absolute best of the best, the machines that defined eras. And I also want to solidify my part in history on YouTube, but I can only do that if you guys support this video and support this channel. Double check if you're subscribed yet. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the top 10 Macs ever created. What? You thought I was going to talk about the greatest Macs of all time without paying homage to the forefather that started it all? Who do you take me for? Introduced in January 1984 with that legendary Super Bowl commercial, the Macintosh 128K rendered those command line IBM PCs obsolete overnight. It brought the graphical user interface, windows, icons, fonts, and the mouse into the mainstream consumer market. Now, of course, it wasn't perfect. It was slow, lacked an internal hard drive, had no expansion slots, and cost nearly $2,500 in 1984 money. But when you booted it up and saw that smiling Mac icon and drew a circle with a mouse in Mac Paint, you were looking directly into the future of human-computer interaction. Everything we do on screens today traces its lineage back to this beige box. I don't hear much about it, but Mac Paint has literally kickstarted everything we know about digital creativity. Believe it or not, this sparked a ton of clones, including PC Paintbrush, which was later adapted into Microsoft Paint. Photoshop 1.0 was a Mac exclusive. Macs have been embracing creatives since the very beginning, all thanks to this thing. Before 2001, laptops looked like something you would use to call on a UAV, and they were just as loud too. Then, Steve Jobs walked on stage, pulled out a laptop wrapped in pure brushed titanium, and immediately refreshed everyone's understanding of how a device can look and work, just like he would continue to do throughout the early 2000s. The G4 was a revelation. It brought a massive 15-inch widescreen display, a DVD drive, and a body so sleek it could easily pass for a modern laptop today. It established the modern laptop blueprint that literally every tech company on earth spent the next 20 years copying. People often cite the MacBook for redefining laptops, but in reality, the PowerBook walked so the MacBook could run. Flaws aside, I refuse to forget the PowerBook's impact on the industry and Apple, and you shouldn't either. Now, hear me out before you throw your USB hub at me. The 2015 12-inch MacBook was flawed. I know, I get it. It was underpowered and introduced the infamous butterfly keyboard that people didn't like. And, to add insult to injury, had exactly one port. You had to choose between charging your computer and plugging in a hard drive. So, why is it on this list? Because it was a daring, forward-looking piece of engineering that sacrificed the present to force us into the future. Weighing just 2 pounds, it was impossibly thin and completely fanless, with a jaw-dropping Retina display. It pioneered USB-C, unapologetically embracing the transition to minimalist design, and was so light you constantly panicked, thinking you left it at home instead of your backpack. It was a beautiful machine, and while it wasn't the workhorse everyone needed, I truly believe that it was incredibly ahead of its time and desperately needs an encore with an Apple Silicon chip. So I'm giving my flowers to the 12-inch MacBook. You had some serious attitude. Talking about some of the best hardware Apple has ever made also makes me think about some of the best software ever made for it too. But hey, apps can get expensive, especially if you're tired of paying full price for every single piece of software you need. If you want to feel like a power user without the headache of hunting down obscure apps or spending your entire paycheck on individual licenses, you need to check out today's sponsor, SetApp. But those who don't know, SetApp is essentially a place where users can discover and access hundreds of high-quality apps. Instead of buying individual apps, you get a single single flat-rate subscription that unlocks a massive library of best-in-class tools for writing, coding, file management, and system optimization. It's how I keep my own Mac from feeling like a digital junk drawer. But here's the twist. SetApp isn't just a subscription service anymore. It is now a full-blown marketplace. Let's say you need one or two specific power tools for your workflow, but you aren't ready to commit to the full monthly suite. You can now purchase those apps individually right through the SetApp platform. It gives you the best of both worlds. You get the convenience of their curated, high-quality library, but you can choose whether you want the all-access pass or just a one-time purchase or subscription for the specific tools that solve your immediate problem. It's easily the most flexible way to power up your Mac and workflow without bloat. You can check out the library and grab a free trial of the subscription at the link in the description below. And thank you to SetApp for sponsoring this video. If the 12-inch MacBook was a delicate piece of modern art, the original aluminum Mac Pro was a battle tank built for war. Introduced in 2006, this machine was an absolute titan of modularity. It had a massive silver chassis with easy latch side doors that popped open to reveal slide-out hard drive bays, dual optical drives, expandable RAM slots, and PCIe slots galore. Sound familiar? You didn't need a degree in mechanical engineering to upgrade it, you just slid parts in and out, like some sort of toy. Creatives loved this machine so much that professionals from all walks of life kept upgrading their 2009 and 2010 models with newer graphic cards and Xeon processors, keeping them running smoothly well into the late 2010s. It refused to die, standing as a glorious monument to a time when Apple actually let you open up your computer and touch things in a uniquely Apple way. Don't take that out of context. If you grew up in the early 2000s, you remember this computer. The iMac G4 looked like a cross between a desk lamp and a Pixar character. Ironically, Steve Jobs did have direct involvement with Pixar, so...
Coincidence? I think not!
Apple mounted a crisp flat panel LCD screen onto a polished chrome arm that swiveled effortlessly in any direction, all attached to a clean, hemispherical base. It moved with fluid grace. You could tilt it with a single finger, which made it feel eerily organic and alive. It was one of the boldest aesthetic risks Apple ever took, fully transitioning the desktop world away from heavy CRT monitors into an era of flat screens. It remains one of the most charming, functional, and iconic computer designs in industrial history. When Steve Jobs walked onto the stage in 2008 and pulled the fully functional laptop out of a standard manila office envelope, there was not one closed drawer in that room. The original 2008 MacBook Air had thermal issues and was wildly expensive, but by 2010, Apple revised it with a tapered enclosure, higher screen resolution, improved battery, a second USB port, stereo speakers, and a solid-state storage as standard, complete with an 11-inch and 13-inch options, making it the ultimate everyday computer. It killed the internal CD/DVD drive and popularized flash storage, offering battery life and portability that seemed impossible at the time. For nearly a decade, the wedge-shaped MacBook Air was the default recommendation for students, writers, travelers, and office workers worldwide. It was light, durable, stylish, and iconic. My first ever Mac was the 2012 MacBook Air, and it changed my life. It may be dead now, but I'll never forget you, little buddy. In 1997, Apple was months away from bankruptcy. Steve Jobs returned, streamlined the product line, and in 1998 introduced a machine that single-handedly saved the computer, the iMac G3. Wrapped in translucent, bondy blue plastic, and later a rainbow of vibrant fruit colors, the iMac G3 destroyed the unwritten rule that computers had to be boring, beige, square boxes. And the commercials, man, what a time. It was built for the internet generation with its own integrated modem and speakers, and even a built-in handle. It was so notoriously aggressive. Steve Jobs killed the legacy floppy disk drive and serial port, forcing the industry to adopt USB instead. People panicked at first, but history proved Apple right, a pattern a lot of us, I'm sure, are familiar with. The iMac G3 made computers fun, friendly, and fashionable, reviving Apple's finances and paving the way for the iPod and iPhone. Thank you, G3. We literally wouldn't be here without you. Take the compact, minimalist footprint of the Mac Mini, stack it twice as high, pack it with some copper heat sinks, and power it with some nasty silicon horsepower. That is the Mac Studio. When Apple Silicon arrived, pro users wanted a machine that offered true workstation power without a giant tower or a price tag that rivaled a new compact car. And no, that is not an exaggeration. The Mac Studio delivers in spades. Powered by the M1 Max and M1 Ultra chips, and later the M2 and M3 variants, this silver aluminum cube can render 8K video timelines, code bases, and handle 3D scenes without even turning on its fans high enough for you to hear them. I've had one for years now, and I still don't know what it sounds like. It thankfully brought back front-facing ports, including an SD card slot, proving that Apple was finally listening to creative professionals again. It is, quite simply, one of the best desktop computers ever engineered, and my personal favorite Mac desktop ever. Ask any software engineer, video editor, photographer, or any other creator who worked in the mid-2010s, and they will speak of the 2015 MacBook Pro with reverent nostalgia. The 2015 MacBook Pro is undoubtedly the Miami Heat LeBron of Macs. This machine was the absolute peak of Intel-era Mac engineering. It had a gorgeous Retina screen, a scissor switch keyboard that felt incredible to type on, a massive glass smooth trackpad, and rock-solid performance. But most importantly, it completely spoiled us with ports. It had MagSafe 2 for magnetic charging, 2 Thunderbolt ports, 2 USB-A ports, an HDMI port, and a full-size SD card slot. Not to mention the iconic glowing Apple logo that I'm still mourning over. Apple, if you're hearing this, bring it back. Please, 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 please. You can carry this thing everywhere without having to worry about a single dongle or adapter, something we would take for granted until 2016. When Apple replaced this design in 2016 with the touch bar and butterfly keyboard, users held on to their 2015 models for half a decade or longer. It was the gold standard of professional laptops, and many would argue it wasn't surpassed until Apple Silicon came along. Macs may have existed for over 50 years now, but I think we've only recently peaked 5 or 6 years ago. At number 1, we have the computers that completely humiliated the entire PC chip industry. The M1 MacBook Air and the M1 Pro/Max MacBook Pro. I couldn't choose, I'm sorry. By 2020, Intel-based MacBooks were causing havoc, running hot, throttling performance, and spinning their fans like jet engines just to keep a few Chrome tabs open. Like we're some kind of Windows laptop. Ugh. Then Apple announced it was dropping Intel in favor of its own custom ARM-based chips. Understandably, everyone was skeptical. Emulating legacy software was supposed to be slow, and battery life trade-offs seemed inevitable. Then the M1 arrived. The M1 MacBook Air had no fan whatsoever, and yet stayed cool to the touch. Booted instantly, ran circles around Intel chips in basic video editing and daily tasks, and possessed a mind-boggling 15 to 20 hours of battery life. You could go 2 days without your charger and not even worry about it. And it did all of this as a starting price of $999? So let's see, would you rather a stand or Satoru Gojo? The M1 Pro and M1 Max MacBook Pro changed everything for professionals. They chewed through heavy video renders for hours on end without breaking a sweat or thermal throttling. They introduced a jaw-dropping mini LED ProMotion display with incredibly accurate colors and unbelievable battery life. And best of all, they swallowed their pride and brought back the ports. MagSafe 3, a dedicated HDMI port, and a full-size SD card reader were finally returned to their rightful places along the side. With Rosetta, the M1 transition was the most seamless architectural shift I've ever seen. It redefined what users expect from a laptop, setting a high watermark that competitors are still scrambling to match today. And there you have it, the top 10 Macs of all time. Whether you started your journey with a floppy disk in 1984 or an M-series chip today, every machine on the list played a role in shaping how we work, create, and play, and we should be extremely grateful for them. Which Mac is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to support this one-man team on my Patreon for cool perks along with Vasco, Francisco Beck, and Miss Game. Thank you all for the support as it keeps me dropping videos consistently, and thank you, viewer, for watching. If you want to see more of me, you know what to do. You know, I was debating putting the MacBook Neo on this list, but considering that it's still new, I think it's only fair to give it some more time before we start making definitive decisions. But I was honestly considering it. Like, the fact that it's a MacBook for broke people, it should be reason enough to be on any list if you ask me.